Baby, what's the deal? You wanna watch Netflix and chill?
Hey guys, it's Carly here, bringing you episode number 17 of the Netflix and Chill horror podcast. As always, I am joined by my homie JP. JP, what's been going on?
What's up, dude? Not too much is going on right now as of lately. There has been a ton of new shows and series and movies and stuff that are hitting the streaming services. I know that a second trailer for Castle Rock has came out, that's that Hulu show. Just so many cool stuff is going on with that, and which makes me more excited to continue with the Netflix and Chill horror podcast, because I want to watch a lot of this stuff. And one thing that I will say is, unfortunately, once again, we're hitting sort of the reset button with the show. We promised that we would be back regularly, and we will be. We are. This is still more regular than we were, but unfortunately, we had a little situation happen. We actually recorded this episode number 17, Santa Clarita Diet, season 2, but over a month ago, probably, or close to it, and we lost the file. So either I didn't save the recording properly, or it just was corrupt or something, but it's gone. When I went to upload it, it was nowhere to be found. So that was unfortunate. And basically, we didn't really want to record that show again so soon, because anytime you lose a recording, it's super annoying. Like, you don't want to even think of that episode again, because you just talked about it so much, and then you lose the recording, and it's like, oh, it's awkward to say things that you've already said, even though nobody heard you say them. To you, you still know you said them, so it almost sounds like you're just retreading the same thing, which, granted, you are, but it feels weird. So that's why I don't like recording the same episode again right after I just recorded it. So that's kind of why we took a little break in between. The only unfortunate thing about doing that is now the show has kind of left our memory a little bit. So we're going to try our best to review the second season in sort of a looser format, but still kind of hit the main points.
Yeah.
Yeah?
And yeah, we're going to do that.
So what did you feel about that? Nothing? You have nothing to say about that?
I was about to talk, actually. I don't know why you're being rude. So, yeah, we lost or I don't know where this we comes from. JP lost the recording, and I gotta say, the first time we were kind of jumping around, and I didn't really have the information pulled up on the show. I was just trying to go by memory, so I couldn't remember exact details. So, I mean, in a way, it's kind of good that we're re-recording it, but at the same time, like he said, it's been a while since we watched it, and I thought about re-watching some episodes to refresh my memory, but I just didn't get the chance, and I didn't know when we were going to end up re-recording.
I had thought about that. I just don't feel like doing that. Like, I watch so much stuff now that I don't have the luxury or the drive to watch something again, usually, because I know that there's so much more stuff that I'm supposed to get to, that if I waste time watching something I've already seen, then I'm just putting myself further behind with the stuff that I have to get to. So that's just not something that I'm going to do. Now, I will rewatch things after some time has passed, because it's a little more fresh, it's a little cooler to, oh yeah, I remember that. You don't remember everything, so I just didn't really want to rewatch this stuff, but
especially with it's like 10 episodes or so, and it's a comedy, and I don't know, for me, if I rewatch a comedy right after just watching it, it loses something for me. So I didn't really want to do that, because a lot of times I just don't find it as funny the second time around, unless some time has passed, of course. But yeah, it would have been too time consuming, and I feel like I would have been a little more down on the show just for that personal reason.
Yeah, so Santa Clarita Diet Season 2, recently aired on Netflix back in March 23rd. And I think we started watching it maybe like 2 weeks later, so maybe the beginning of April we started watching it. I'll tell you right now, I burned through that season. I watched probably all 10 episodes in 2 days, pretty much. And then we recorded. Then we lost the recording. We were actually about to hit 3 weeks in a row where we had an episode, and it just all came crashing down. That was brutal. You just lose your enthusiasm towards an episode if something like that happens. And it's unfortunate. So took a little break because I had a bunch of stuff come up after that. The whole purpose of recording those 3 episodes really close together was to come back and be weekly, and then and I knew I had things going on, so we were going to take some time off, but we had episodes in the vault, in the bank, ready to go out. And then, when that episode got lost, it kind of ruined everything. But I have a little bit more free time right now. We're taking a little bit of break from 22 shots. So I've been watching a couple of screeners that I had, and I started a new show on Netflix, which I actually want to cover on here. Season 1 of Black Mirror, which is like an anthology, almost like Twilight Zone-esque show. I watched the first 2 episodes. I absolutely loved it. So I want to check out that 3rd episode. Season 1 is only 3 episodes, so we could definitely get to that very soon. Have you cracked that open yet?
Not yet. You said you wanted to do it on the show, so I figured I would wait until after we get this one done with, and then I would get into that, because once again, I don't want to, lose my memory on it. But I actually really have been wanting to check that one out ever since people told me it was about, or similar to the Twilight Zone, so I'm excited that we're going to be covering that. So there only is 1 season so far, right? And it's only those 3 episodes?
4 seasons.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 4 seasons. The first season has 3 episodes. The second season has 4, and then season 3 and 4 have 6 each.
That's cool.
Yeah, very weird how they kind of laid that out. But I want to cover it soon, because the problem is with that show is the episodes are self-contained stories. Just one story, per episode. And I don't want to lose my memory on the first 2 because they're pretty good. So right after we record this, you need to get watching Black Mirror so we could record that.
Yeah,
possible.
I could get that done pretty fast if it's only 3 episodes. So
yeah, they are hour long each, but
yeah, that's no problem. But yeah, I'm excited to do that, and I'm excited to get this one done, and hopefully we'll be back on a streak again. Because like you said, it's easy to lose motivation, especially when you're like, I don't know. We keep saying we're on a streak, but literally we had like 2 episodes.
But 2 was a streak for us.
I know.
It would have been 3. The streak would have been 3, which would have, I think, been a streak at that point. 2 is whatever. If you get a 3rd one, it's a streak. I swear to God, this show is going to succeed and be weekly, or at least bi-weekly sooner or later. So God damn it, I'm making it happen. I know we keep talking about it, but it's really annoying to me because we had all good intentions with that, making that happen. And it kind of bums me out a little bit because I know that there's not a ton of interest for this show, and we don't get a ton of listeners. And I think it's because of our inconsistency. I really do. I wish more people would check this show out, and I wish more people would, talk about it after we do episodes. And I really want this show to be a popular show that I want to do weekly, So hopefully with more consistent episodes, we see more growth. With the actual podcast itself, because this is one of my favorite podcasts, out of all the things I've been involved with, because I like streaming shows and movies, and I love having a reason to watch that stuff.
And you get to do it with me.
Who?
Me. Your buddy.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, so, are there any, besides Black Mirror, is there anything else on Netflix that you've been checking out or anything?
Forensic Files.
Yeah.
That's like a nightly thing for me.
I personally finished Bates Motel finally, and gotta say I was a little disappointed, guys, as most people seem to be. I didn't really believe the people who were saying it was disappointing, because when people say that, I always feel like I'm gonna have a different opinion, or I'm not gonna think it's that bad, but I don't know, it was a very weird ending, but overall, that's a pretty good show if you're into Psycho and all that, but yeah, other than that, I haven't really watched much as far as streaming goes.
Yeah, I watched, I think, Battle Royale a few weeks ago on Shudder.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it. I haven't been watching a ton of streaming, but there was a new show that looks like it dropped on Netflix called The Rain or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like post-apocalyptic. I watched a little trailer that comes with it, so that's something also to keep an eye on. There's a lot of shows. We typically prefer to cover movies. Actually, we've only covered I think 2 shows on here, but that's I like shows. It's just they're harder to review, and that brings us to season 2 of Santa Clarita Diet from 2018. It came out March 23rd. This is a series that we both really like. For one, season 1 was really good for us. We reviewed it here on the podcast last year, and we both were very high on it. And season 2, we were, I think, kind of unsure if there was going to be a season 2 at first, but then I think we found out there was. And all of a sudden, I seen a trailer for it, and I was like, oh wow, this drops like a month from now. This is pretty crazy. Because certain shows you just think about all the time, and you're like, man, I can't wait till that comes back. And then other shows you kind of forget about, and then once they drop, you're like, oh crap, season 2's finally here. What was your opinion on like waiting for it?
At first when we did season 1, I was pretty depressed because I thought, man, now I have to wait a whole year or so for the next season to come out. But like you said, people sometimes forget, people are sometimes excited, and I actually kind of forgot about it, not because it's a forgettable show, but I think it's because we, cram it in so fast. Like, I think I watched that first season in 2 or 3 days or something like that. And, you watch it so fast, it's almost like a movie, and then you kind of just forget about it. So when they dropped season 2, it seemed like not that much time had actually passed for me personally.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that a whole year can go by like that.
I know. Yeah, I know.
So, this one picks up where the last one left off, which I think we weren't super happy with where the last one left off. But I had actually forgot like what had even happened. They did have like a little recap before season 1. If you, there was an option for like a little recap on Netflix, and I watched that, and it still didn't help me that much. So
I always tend to skip recaps. I'm one of those people because I always think this is going to be annoying to watch. I already know everything that happened, but I should have watched it because going into season 2, I knew what happened at the end of season 1, but I forget what events led up to it happening, so I was a little bit confused.
Yeah, so season 2 is 10 episodes. They run about a half hour each, and they basically follow a family that the mother in the family, played by Drew Barrymore, her character's name is Sheila, gets infected with some sort of zombie-like virus. And it's up to the family to, 1, keep her fed, 2, keep her from being arrested and or killed, and 3, to keep the family together. They also kind of implement their neighbor into the whole situation, who's like a younger boy who is kind of best friends with their daughter, who all know that this is going on and are all trying to help the mother through this interesting time. As well as keep the family together. Joel is the husband, Abby is the daughter, and the next door neighbor is Eric. So those are the ones who are kind of in on everything that's going on. And where we were left off is basically Sheila is deteriorating. Her body is decomposing. So they're trying to find not only a cure for the decomposition, but hopefully a cure for whatever virus she actually has. Now, they don't actually cure her virus, but they do begin to work on a cure for the decomposition, and they basically need bile from a Serbian-born person, which is very weird. So this virus seems to originate in Serbia. We kind of find that out last season, and Joel is preoccupied in a mental hospital. Abby and Eric are trying to buy some bile from somebody online, and also we have a few other characters, like side characters. There's a character named Ramona who we kind of are introduced to again in this season, reintroduced to, and she is a employee at a store, and it seemed like Joel, Abby, and Sheila, maybe not Sheila, at least a handful of these characters has had interactions with her in season 1. Now, the introduction of Ramona's character was pretty cool. I was a fan of that idea because I think last season both of us were really high on that character because she was funny.
Yeah, and I remember the first time we kind of talked about this, you asked, like, if I thought maybe she wasn't supposed to be a big character, but then they kind of wrote her into one for season 2 because people liked her and things like that. And I mean, I kind of do feel that way, that she probably was just supposed to be that backup comic relief character, or not comic relief, obviously it's a comedy, but she was just like for extra comedic value. And then I feel like they kind of thought they could incorporate her more, which I like how they incorporated her in this season.
Yeah, I do too. So, basically she becomes a love interest for Eric, who we know Abby is sort of Eric's love interest. So you have this like little love triangle thing going on there between those characters. But then we also find out that Ramona is also infected with the same virus that Sheila is, because we see that she is eating a man's finger while she is on the phone with Eric and basically invites him to hang out. And that's kind of where we get in the first episode. We get kind of a lot of this stuff wrapped up. Sheila gets the cure. Then we have Eric meeting Ramona and setting up a future plot point in there. Abby goes on her own to get this bile from this guy on the internet. He kind of like gets very aggressive with her. He follows her back home. Sheila kills him. They got to get rid of this evidence, stuff like that. So that's kind of where we're starting the season at. So we have a few different plot lines going on. One, we now have Sheila safe and cured from this decomposition type thing. We have Joel now out of the mental hospital, which is good, because I didn't like that storyline from last season. I thought it was weak. And I think that the writers even thought it was weak because they wrap it up pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It was kind of, it left a bad taste in my mouth. I was still excited for season 2, but I thought if they would have tried to expand on that, kind of left, because I didn't like that it left Joel out of the picture and divided up the family, because the family just kind of works really well together, and especially Joel and Sheila, they really, most of the comedy is coming from those two as a pair, so I wasn't really happy with that, so I'm glad they kind of, fixed it for this season.
Yeah, and Joel is sort of reserved about everything. He is fine with having this nice, quiet life where he writes his Yelp reviews. He debates if he's going to have a coffee this afternoon. Like, just like the small stuff in life. He's like very into that, Mm-hmm. And Sheila is, pretty much the same, but now with this newfound zombie nature of her, she has been way more outgoing and really it's actually helped her in life be more aggressive towards life and sort of way less reserved and going for her dreams more, stuff like that. She's just more badass altogether. So, and we find out that it's from the zombie virus that basically makes people be who they wanted to be. So it's kind of a good thing at the same time, even though the biggest caveat of it is having to eat people.
Slaughter people.
Yeah. So Sheila begins to sort of, hunt animals. They still need to find another person for her to eat. They always have that problem. They store different evidence in different places. Abby and Eric, you have this weird sort of relationship once she finds out that Ramona actually has, I guess, interest in Eric. But then Eric finds out that Ramona is actually a zombie too.
Undead, yeah.
But then they actually have sex, which is kind of interesting.
3 times.
3 times? I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember that.
Details, man. Details.
There was a funny moment when Eric actually went to go meet Ramona, not intentionally, but he basically caused this thing to happen, and then the family is like, yeah, pretty much. You know how when you say something and then you expect people to be like, oh, no, it's not your fault. But everybody just looks at him like, mm-hmm. That's
you
funny.
did this, sir.
Yeah, so there's a lot of plot lines going on in this season. Some of the big ones is they try to find out where this virus came from. Once they find out Ramona has it too, they then have another person that they can track back to when the virus happened to them. If you cross-reference each other's data, then you could probably find a similar thing that both people had done during the time of their infection, which they do in this season. So we get to learn a little bit more about what's actually happening, and why it's happening and where it came from. It's, obviously this is a spoiler episode that we're recording here, but it essentially has to do with clams, where they got these clams from this restaurant, but this clam restaurant didn't order their clams from this normal person. They got it from this other person who got these clams from their brother in Serbia and started breeding them and is now going to sell them as a sort of mass product. So that becomes a huge problem, because if more people eat these clams, then they're going to be zombies. It's going to end the world. So they have that going on. You have this weird love triangle with Abby and Eric. And actually, it turns from a triangle to a square because Abby starts being interested in this guy at school.
Yeah.
Sven?
I actually forgot about that entire part.
Yeah. So I think that this season has good moments for Eric. I think that he sort of has a little bit of growth. Obviously, hooking up with Ramona, big step for him. But also sort of standing up to Abby a little bit, because Abby starts going on this weird, I don't know what you would call it, sort of like she's very like
rebellious,
like,
just not being, I don't know what the word is, I guess, trying to assert herself in different ways and be the strong character who just doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, like she wants to blow up a billboard to prove a point with involving fracking. And that's annoying. I don't like her character in this season that much. I find that stuff just annoys me. Like, I understand your life is a little crummy right now and you have a lot going on, but it almost feels like an insult to the character a little bit, because I feel like she is smarter than the character, than the like bullshit teen who like needs to act out because they're unhappy with the way that their life is. She seems like she should be smarter than that.
Yeah, it also gets on my nerves in this season. It seemed like they kept saying the same line of dialogue a lot, where she just keeps on saying, "Oh, sorry, I just have a lot going on at home," or "Things are just so crazy in my life." I feel like she says that in every single episode, and that was just one thing I kind of noticed. It kind of got on my nerves a little bit.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, like, I don't know, it got really repetitive after a while, and I could see what you mean. She just has that look to her where she would be a smart person. You just look at her and don't think she would be acting out or doing anything stupid like that, but she does.
Yeah, I could feel that. Joel is still pretty much Joel. He doesn't have a ton of character growth in this season. He's still just doing his same thing, as well as Sheila. We have the introduction of the neighborhood police officer who is basically dating the police officer that they killed from the previous season, who was Eric's stepdad. So now we have a woman introduced who's dating the ex-wife of the guy that they murdered. So that adds a funny little lesbian twist on it. Mm-hmm. And I actually think her character was pretty good, because there's so many situations in which it feels like she's getting so close to cracking, the case on Sheila and Joel. And it adds to some suspenseful and awkward and uneasy situations that I really appreciated this season. Because one thing that this show does well is that it almost, I guess I will liken it back to a show called Dexter, which Dexter had this way of making you really nervous for the main characters, similar to that in Psycho. And I think that they have a lot of that going on in this show. It's just, interesting
over
to
the
see
top.
them.
It's really over the top and funny, though. Like,
yeah, but they still manage to keep like the seriousness in certain story elements where you actually want this family to succeed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just it's an over the topness that also I find funny sometimes in serious movies. You see it where a character is acting very suspicious and uncomfortable. Almost, I mean, like, in Psycho, like Norman Bates, you just feel like he's up to something because of how nervous he gets. And they have a scene in this movie where your two main characters, Sheila and Joel, go to this party, and some like important guy comes up to them. I forget who he is exactly, but they're just like laughing and like being extremely awkward and saying, "Oh, we live right over there. That's our house. That is where we live." And it's just they just make it so obvious that they are up to something. But you also see that in serious movies as well. But it's really funny how they kind of highlight that.
Yeah, it definitely is. And so they have that aspect of it going on, where the neighbor is getting more and more interested in basically poking around to different murders and different things happening, different events that Sheila and Joel are all sort of involved in, but it's unknown to the rest of the world. So I like that dynamic. It kind of wraps up nicely with that too. I actually like where that went. And some other things that are going on. You have Sheila and Joel, who are trying to basically get a new job, not a new job, but take on a project at work that could be very, financially rewarding for them. And that's when the characters of their, I guess, rivals are introduced. And I actually thought that this was some of the best comedy in this season, the realtor versus realtor thing.
Oh God, yeah.
So Sheila and Joel say realtor, and they have these snobby, like, stuck up rivals that work with them, who are also assigned to this house, and they just like one up each other nonstop. It's played out so good, and you just hate them because they're like against Sheila and Joel, and you like them. But they have this funny joke about how you say the word realtor. Is it realtor or is it realtor? And it's very funny, especially if you watch with subtitles, because they accentuate the A.
It's like in quotes, realtor.
Yeah. What'd you think about those characters?
Yeah, I thought it was funny. It's like that quick with the quick-witted, or whatever you say, with the insults back. Yeah, I know you always say some stupid shit, but it's when they're just really quick with the insults going back and forth, and they don't miss a beat. And I always find that comedy to be hilarious when people don't stutter or like pause or anything like that. They just come back at it with the insults. And these people, their names were Chris and Krista as well, and I think they had a son named Chris. Just to that's just something that like adds to assholeness, I feel like, when everyone has the same name in the family.
Yeah, I agree. So besides that, you also have this sort of investigation on these clams. It's a little silly, what the main cause was, but I can buy it a little bit.
Yeah, like I'm glad that they expanded on that story for this season, because how we had some friends who watched it from work and stuff, and they're kind of like, I don't get it. Like, all she does is just start puking in season 1, and then all this stuff just starts going down, and, you really just don't get any backstory. Just all this weird stuff happens, a ball comes out of her, and, like, just all this weird stuff. And, I don't mind it, but I could see why some people would be taken back by that. So I'm glad that they chose to expand on the story in the season, and I'm fine with the food, clam, whatever epidemic going on. That sounds like something that could happen, even though this is a very unrealistic story. I could see that being the cause.
Yeah, you actually mentioned something that we haven't shared, but we were talking about this show when season 2 came out, and we were talking about it at work, and there was 2 other coworkers who said that they had started watching this way back when season 1 came on, and they turned it off because it was like weird. And it just kind of highlighted the differences between horror fans and non-horror fans, because when I started watching it and all of a sudden this woman starts throwing up everywhere and it's like this over dramatic, like crazy projectile vomit, I get intrigued. When a normal person watches that, they get grossed out and they're like, this is stupid. And they don't even see where the show goes. They literally didn't know it was about a zombie mom,
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, because, I was the opposite when I started watching the show, it kind of opens up with like the normal family setting, like a normal sitcom, and I'm like, this feels like it's going to be kind of stupid. And then when they get to the vomit part, I'm like, okay, all right, I'll see what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. I think the comedy works so well in this show, like, and you really could just take an episode and really just point out all the jokes. And that's, you know, the story is okay. It's decent. It's good enough. It's cool. I like certain aspects of it. I don't like certain aspects of it. But it's really the comedy that really sells this show. And you can't really do it justice in a review. Like, you can't hit that comedic timing. You can't really, even if you just tell a story of what happened in the episode and tell the joke like that, it's just not going to resonate with our audience that hasn't seen it. So we recommend obviously checking out the show for the actual effects of like why the show's so good, because it's not the story per se that keeps me going back to it. It's the comedy. It really works well. Drew Barrymore is absolutely awesome. Joel is absolutely awesome. And Eric is absolutely awesome. I don't really like Abby that much, but I do think she has a place in the show. She says some funny things, and she has like this cynical way about her that I do like, this almost like Daria type of vibe. If for those of you who are familiar with Daria, one of my favorite shows of all time, she kind of has like a Daria persona a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I even said in the first season I didn't really care for her in that one either, and I feel like you were kind of defending her a little more in that one, but I do like that they give her and Eric more character development and kind of just build on their story, because it just adds a little bit more to the story in general. Like in the second season, you get more storylines going on in general, and I do like that about it, because obviously you can't just keep doing the same old stuff, but I would still say Abby is definitely my least favorite character. Yeah,
I agree. So we also get introduced to another reoccurring character this season. Basically, it is, I think that it was the guy who, I always forget his name.
Gary.
Gary. And we were a little confused when we first reviewed the show on who he actually was. I think that he was the other realtor that they were competing with, that Shibboleth was hanging out with.
Uh-huh.
I think that's who that was, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to like go back into season 1 online to see, but I'm pretty sure, because I know we remembered it when we reviewed this the first time, and now I forget again. But yeah, basically, you know, they kill the dude, and
because Dan was the cop next door. Gary was the other realtor that worked with Joel and Sheila.
Yeah, and at first when watching this season, I was confused, and I thought Dan was who they find. But
me too.
Basically, they dig up Gary's body in the desert because they find out, I think, something's going to be built there or something. So they have conveniently, the body happens to be right there. So they're digging him up, and they find that his head is still alive, and it's
not really alive. It's just reanimated.
It's undead in its own way, so he's been,
able to talk.
He's
basically a talking head.
Cue the crickets. Anyway, so, the reason he's still alive is because they did not shoot him in the brain. Yeah.
So, correct? Classic zombie lore that we're using there.
Yeah.
So, he's kind of interesting. That he adds a couple of side plots, like he basically wants to die, but he wants a few things done before he dies, and Joel and Sheila help him out, and then he doesn't want to die, and then he wants to die again.
Which is it's kind of a sad situation, even though he's just like this gross head. It's like when he says he doesn't want to die anymore, you're just like, oh man, I wouldn't be able to, how could you kill what's left of him when he doesn't want to.
Yeah, I agree. But the season sort of wraps up in this finale at the clam spot, which honestly, like, I thought, they introduced these side characters that clearly know about the zombie virus, and they're tracking, they show them in a few episodes early on, they're tracking where this virus is spread, and we find out that they just need to destroy the clams and then pretty much destroy anybody who is infected. So we know that in season 3, if there is a season 3, that's going to come to a head, and that's probably going to be your main plot line. I just don't like the characters that much. I think they're playing it too, like these guys are just like super nerds that are into this stuff and this underground society of stop the zombies or whatever. But they have like RPGs and it's just, I don't know, like it just kind of rubbed me the wrong. I thought it went a little too over the top with those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why they would go that route, just to add more story for the potential 3rd season, because it's a weird story, because where do you go now, kind of? It seems like it's a hard thing to kind of write about and expand on, so I could kind of see how they would add those characters in.
I can tell you where it's going to go. It's going to go with them hunting down Sheila and finding out that she's a zombie, and then by the end of it, they're going to be like, oh, look, people can actually be normal people while zombified, and we shouldn't kill her, or something like that. Yeah,
like I meant, it's just...
You meant what?
Like, before they added that in, it's like you have to find a direction to go in. I wasn't saying I don't know where they would go with this. I'm saying, yeah, what you just said was very plausible, very generic, and what would probably end up happening, unfortunately, out of this. But I could see why the writers kind of went that route, and I gotta say, I don't really like it either, just because I feel like it'll add more, I don't know, convolutedness to it, and also... I just love the family dynamic in this show, and I don't want like all this weird just.
It seems like it's getting too big, which I don't like.
Yeah,
I just like the simpleness of it.
Yeah, so I can see what you mean.
I do like adding a little bit of mythology with the clams and stuff to the story. They introduced the Mr. Ball Legs, which is awesome. So basically, in season 1, Sheila threw up this ball. We find out from Ramona what the ball is, because Sheila and Joel just froze theirs, but it turns out this thing has legs and can walk around, and it's pretty much like an animal.
Like a spider.
It's like a spider thing. It's gross. It's pretty cool though. I can't wait to see where that thing goes, because that thing is funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of it. I mean, it's a good show. It has great laughs in it. I liked how it sort of ended, and I'm like, okay, this could get interesting. I hope we get a season 3. Apparently, the writers or the creators said that like they basically have an idea for like a 5-season series. So it like if they got their wish, it would last 5 seasons.
Which I feel like 5 is usually the good number of seasons. When you go above that, it kind of gets ridiculous. And then sometimes if you don't make it to 5, it seems like stuff doesn't get wrapped up. So I'd be fine with 5 seasons, I think, if they can do it.
Yeah.
But
I don't know if it officially has not been greenlit for a season 3, I don't think. But it looked like, from what I was reading, that they were pretty confident a season 3 would be happening.
Yeah, so hopefully, because I would really like to see more of it, even if the story isn't always my favorite or something I agree with. I still find it to be a hilarious show, and that's all that really matters for me with a show, with a comedy. As long as it keeps making me laugh, the story isn't that huge of a deal.
Yeah.
So, do you have do you want to give your final thoughts on the show as a whole, I guess?
Yeah, so I think the second season, I think I might have I don't know. I think I enjoyed it about equally. I guess I didn't like some of the plot a little bit more in season 2, but in season 1 I really didn't like how it all wrapped up, so it kind of evens out on that aspect of things. I do really like the show, and let's say that season 3 dropped like 3 months from now, which we know it won't be until next March probably. I would be really excited to check it out. However, I do think that they would have to really bring something good to the table that would really set itself apart from the first two seasons, because season 2 is more of the same. I like that, but it can only last so long with more of the same. Eventually you have to elevate. So as of right now, I think I still like it about as much as I like the first season, but it definitely needs to grow from here on out.
Yeah, I feel you. I kind of want to say that I might have enjoyed season 1 a little bit more than season 2, if I'm being honest, but it's kind of hard to judge that since I literally did not rewatch season 1, so it had been a year since I'd seen it compared to season 2, so it's really hard to judge, but I feel like I kind of got more laugh out loud moments out of the first season, and like I just said, that's kind of what I'm looking for, is the comedy aspect, because this is a horror comedy focusing more on the comedy, and like JP said, the story in season 2 gets a little just strange. You don't know where they're really going to go, so I feel like overall I probably enjoyed season 1 better, but with that being said, I still enjoyed season 2. I thought it had some great funny moments in it, and I liked how they build upon the characters, and I would look forward to seeing where they go with season 3, which hopefully they get a season 3. So I kind of rate my TV shows, even though that's hard to do. I think for season 1 I gave it a 9 out of 10, and then this one I gave like an 8.5 out of 10. So
yeah, I would probably come in at 8.5 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe a little bit less than season 1.
Mm-hmm.
But
Fair
yeah,
enough.
That is it. Episode number, 17?
Yep.
And hopefully the recording actually works this time. And then
that would be nice, buddy. That would be real nice.
We will get this episode up, and we will start working on our next episode, which it's my pick, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and I know doing 2 TV shows back to back isn't the coolest thing in the world, but I think this one would be kind of cool because they're anthology episodes, so each story is its own thing. And I'm going to go ahead and pick a Black Mirror season 1. So you need to finish watching it or start watching it. I need to finish watching it, and we will be back next week with season 1 of Black Mirror.
Yeah.